Oh, okay, everyone. Hello. We're here. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the fifth of hopefully many episodes of Bardadvice, my new D&D themed podcast where I give advice and answer questions. Hope everyone's doing okay. We're gonna see how this goes in terms of the stream. I did make some more changes. Fifth time's a charm, as they say. So let's hope that we can get through this without any major issues. Hey, River. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. How do you get a D&D player to go out with you? You ask them for a date, a D8. It doesn't translate as well on audio, but it's a visual joke. It's good. Hello, pirate archaeologist, Randy, Bella. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming and hanging out. So, this week, I've been watching that Shaq documentary, and it's gotten me distracted from things. I really should have been spending the last week or so like diving into D&D test material, but I just didn't. So, instead, I've just been like watching documentaries and writing a lot. But before we jump right into questions, I did want to bring up some information that I have for this week's art corner, as it were. Well, first, actually, before we get into that, see, this is why I need to make myself notes every time. And I have a file that's titled Notes open, and I'm looking at it, and it's not really helping. Okay, this is a thing that I can do right now before we get started on anything, is remind everyone of the email, bardadvice@gmail.com. Please send questions. I've been getting more lately, and I've also been getting more where it's multiple questions. Feel free to do that. That's always awesome, too, because I can keep coming back to them. I appreciate everybody's questions, but send more. So send them to bardadvice@gmail.com, and I will get to them as I can. Let's see. My DM is running a Fable game. Not bad if you're familiar with the games. Yeah, aren't they remaking Fable? Is that true? Did I make that up in my head? Hadn't I heard that they were remaking it? Or maybe they've already done it and it's come and gone. I don't know. Things move so fast these days. But please send all of your questions, complaints, comments, concerns to bardadvice@gmail.com. And while you're at it, while I'm plugging stuff and putting up links, go over to manshorts.com. Get yourself some merch. I actually had a meeting with our agent today that I thought was pretty productive in terms of discussing our plans for next year. Nothing is in stone, obviously. More dice. So all that stuff is coming. But for the moment, you can go get yourself a cool hoodie or some shorts at manshorts.com. Okay. So a friend of the podcast, or rather a friend of the podcast, submitted this person to highlight on this week's Art Corner. So, from what I can tell, just my rudimentary brief understanding, you read an article that says they're working on the Fable remaster. Yeah, I thought that was true. I thought I'd read something like that somewhere. Okay, so this is an author who is going to be soon releasing the first installment in a book trilogy. The trilogy is called A Sea of Ash and Shadow. The author is one Elizabeth Calvert. I have linked the author's email in the description. I also have this really dope picture by a Scarlett Dixon Art on IG. I've also linked that person's Instagram in the description. And speaking of descriptions, here's just a quick blurb I have on the book. A hapless thief with a score to settle. A cursed pirate doomed to satisfy an endless bloodlust. One weapon could set them both free, but at what cost? They and their ragtag crew embark on a hunt for the greatest prize they will ever know, but they aren't alone. A great evil hunts the pirates across the waves, but it is greater than the wicked darkness living among their own ranks. It's a race against time and fate for Captain Ash Black, there on the right, and Killian Roberts as they forge a bloody trail into parts unknown in their search to break a devil's bargain. So that's actually the name of the first book in the trilogy, Devil's Bargain. The trilogy, again, is A Sea of Ash and Shadow. And I linked the Instagrams there for both the author and the artist. So that's cool. It's always cool to see people doing stuff as they should be. Oh, man. Have you guys seen this Chat GPT thing? Yowza. That's going to change everything. That's going to change everything in terms of D&D for sure. I'm probably going to abuse that thing in terms of just like, I mean, I played with it for a little bit the other night and just very briefly, just like make me an NPC. And I mean, hoo-wee. Y'all should check that out if you get a spare hour. Chat GPT, if you want to have like an existential nightmare for a little while and also come up with some really cool content for your games, check out Chat GPT. Okay, so I think that was I'm satisfied with that plug. I think hopefully that sends some people your way, Elizabeth. Best of luck on the book and the release, etc. I know it's always a beast doing any kind of big project like that. So, all right. I do have a list of the names of the questioners this week, so that's good. I do have that. Got to write a storybook just so I can get Charles to maybe read the blurb. It's fine with me. Oh, we were your introduction to D&D? Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that you're part of the community. All right, let's get rolling on some questions because we've been cooking for a little bit here. Why isn't it that link for the time waster? For the what? I don't know what you mean there, pal. Okay, so the first question we have this week is from Floyd. And Floyd asks, in books, TV, movies, and games, who is your favorite villain and why? So this is not like completely D&D related. It's it's just within the realm of nerddom, I guess. And I was kind of surprised that I didn't have like quick fast answers for this. So I took some time to think about it. Obviously, I think you have like the iconic villains, right? Like Vader, Joker. I would argue like Alex DeLarge is somebody I think on that Everest of like the worst of the worst. Although, obviously Joker and Vader have much more staying power as characters. I mean, God, those properties have been alive for decades and decades and decades. I mentioned wasting time on some webpage. Yes, sorry. Yeah, it's called Chat GPT. Sorry, I don't have the link for that. But if you Google it, you should be able to find it, and it's free. G as in Gregory, P as in Peter, T as in Tom. Chat GPT. Anyway, so the villains. So, yeah, I thought about this. I don't know. I think for me, I think that Eric Cartman is the... If you're going for, like, the worst... I think Cartman from South Park is top tier, dude. He's in the conversation. He's an absolute monster. Like, if you've seen everything that he's done, and then just, like, assume all of the things that, obviously he's only done what we've seen because that's how it's been written. But I don't know. I think about characters that way. I think about, like, what Cartman's doing that we're not seeing, and it's got to be insane, right? So... Gaius Balter from Battlestar BSG comes to mind. The newer BSG. Who else? I think Joffrey and Ramsay from Game of Thrones were really fun villains. Obviously lots of credit to the actors because that's got to be tough. That Jack Gleason kid said that people used to scream at him and stuff in public. That must have been insane. Um, so, yeah, those are the ones that come to mind as some of what I guess are the worst or my favorite, so to speak, villains. Besides dwarf, what race makes the best blacksmith? Well, maybe a gnome? I don't know. I mean, I think that anybody could make a good blacksmith if they're good at it, if they try, if they have like a natural affinity to it and they also practice. You know, you can make any race a good blacksmith. Hans Gruber, good call. Yeah, I did think of him, although I'd forgotten him until you mentioned it. He's pretty good. I was talking to my wife about how funny the concept of Die Hard with a Vengeance is, because it's like, you know, obviously they did. I think they're up to 5 now. He did a 5th one, which I didn't even see. I could barely get through 4 because it was tough. But Die Hard 2, the original Die Hard's a masterpiece. Also, it's a Christmas movie. Don't at me. The original Die Hard's a masterpiece. Die Hard 2 is like meh. It's okay. It's kind of a bottle movie, really, right? It's like, well, I guess the first one is, but I don't know. The airport, not so interesting. But then in Vengeance, you get Hans Gruber's brother, which is just. Plus, you get Samuel L. Jackson. So I don't know how we ended up talking about Die Hard. Oh yeah, Hans Gruber. Yeah, he's pretty awful. And you know who's like kind of, you know who annoys me even more than Hans Gruber is the white dude, the cokehead guy that like tries to like that screws everybody over, like tries to like talk his way out of tries to negotiate with the hostiles. Yeah, you could argue that guy's like worse than Hans Gruber. At least you knew what you were getting with Hans Gruber. So that's what we've got for villains this week. So thank you, Floyd. I appreciate the question. We do have some. I can't freestyle. Hot. Oh man, that's a hot drop. Does the world not know that? I think I've said that before. It's not that I can't. It's just that I don't. I never have. All of my rap stuff has always been like written stuff and like methodically practiced and like. It's just freestyling is not a muscle I have ever exercised with rap. So, but I could write a really tight verse about it now. I'll tell you that. Okay. John Leguizamo in Spawn. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I'd forgotten that. Okay, so this next question is a bit more D&D related. Also, I'm liking how things are going. I think that the streams are the streaming software seems to be functioning properly. I probably shouldn't have said that. Anyway, the next question is from Andy. And Andy asks, do you have a list of books you would recommend I read before starting to DM a group? Whether it's a long campaign or one-shots, are there books or material you know of that would help me learn the broader issues that DMs tend to have? Okay, so, I mean, this obviously feels like a question that's not about source books, right? Because that's the obvious answer, is any kind of source material. I believe last week we discussed the Dragonlance series, and isn't, like, Wizards doing something big with that? I am like Batman and I need prep time. That's true. I'm like Kevin from Home Alone. Will ChatGPT replace me as a DM? Probably eventually, but not for a long time. I think with the excuse me, I think with the AI stuff, like the jobs that are going to get replaced with AI is stuff that like anybody could do, right? Like, and that's not like to downplay anybody's jobs, right? But like when you're talking about like tasks where it's just like you really just need to understand the basic concept of performing this task, whether that's physical or on a computer, AI is going to wipe all of that out. I think that artists are safe for a little longer because you can still tell the difference, but it's getting close. It's getting really close to all of us just not having any jobs. So the Captain No Beard said to Andy, read a good book on conflict resolution. You'll need it. Yeah, conflict resolution. In terms of like, I don't know. Yeah, there is some really good AI art out there. So the video, or rather, excuse me, books that you could read, I really don't know. I'm trying to think of like good fantasy books. Like, I don't know how that would help you in terms of like, let me look at the question again. Maybe I should pay more attention to the question. That would help you learn the broader issues. Yeah, that seems like I mean, maybe we can like Google it, right? Like D&D help books. They probably have like, they've got to have some like, somebody must have written like a self-help book. D&D self-help book teaches readers to be, what is this? To be more D&D. How to be more D&D. Oh, look at this. Here you go. How to be more D&D. Face your dragons, be more adventurous, and live your best geeky life. I don't know. This might not be exactly appropriate for you, but in terms of like content, Forgotten Realm books, Chris says, Art of War by Sun Tzu is good for battle tactics. Yeah, probably good in general. Ooh, maybe something like Machiavelli's The Prince. Maybe some interesting stuff in there. Also stuff like Redwall. The Redwall books are bangers. Those are all dope as shit. Redwall series, Lord of the Rings series, Paradise Lost, River says. Yeah, Legend of Drizzt, Dragonlance. Yeah. And isn't Dragonlance doing some huge new thing? I feel like somebody just mentioned that to me. Oh yeah, this Polygon.com says a new Dragonlance trilogy starts in 2022. Oh, in August. Oh, did it already do it? Did that already happen? Is that already out? See, this is what I mean with me being like behind the times. I don't always know what's going on. So that would be good. Oh yeah, any book by Lovecraft. Oh, and you know who else is man, Lovecraft, that's nice. Is Robert Heinlein. Although that is more sci-fi, but his themes for sure. Like stuff like Stranger in a Strange Land or The Cat That Walks Through Walls. Game of Thrones. Yeah, a lot of my favorite oh, what's the name of that series? Is it Black Sun Rising? Is that what it's called? C.S. Friedman? Those are cool. Dragons of Deceit is out. Next one is this summer. Third one's not written yet. Okay, I guess I assume that that's in reference to the new Dragonlance stuff. A good basic management book. Working with people is the hard part. Yeah, that's true too. Like that's a good point. Maybe also treat it like just like just like look through your go to a bookstore, like a in person, like you can be their bookstore. Because otherwise, you just have to like know what book you're looking for and search it on Amazon, right? Like, I mean, I guess you could browse Amazon, but like fuck all that. Go to a regular bookstore. Like go physically into a Barnes and Noble and go to the gaming section and look for stuff, and then go to the self-help section and look for stuff. And in the self-help section, I would look for stuff like team building or like working on a group project. Anything like that might be helpful. And by the way, I shouldn't have just made that seem like it was a plug for Barnes and Noble. You can go to the library too. They also have a gaming section and a self-help section. But at any rate, yeah, I'd say that those would be the two sections that I would look for. Oh, also, I missed this person's, Trevor, thank you for your $2 donation. You stay awesome as well. I did see that with my face earlier and just like didn't mention it, so thank you. But yeah, Andy, hopefully that points you in the right direction. I think any of those that we mentioned are really cool. The Cold Fire trilogy, I didn't mention that. Terry Pratchett is good. Yeah, Terry Pratchett's good. Roger Zelazny. It's a bunch of stuff there for you, Andy. So hopefully some of those will help you along your way. So let's move on. The next question we have is from Matthew. Matthew says, I really like the group I've been playing with for the last 8 years, but time and again, no one is willing to DM. Yeah. If they do, they exclusively run short-form games like 1 or 2 shots. Yeah. Otherwise, if I don't run, we don't play. Any advice for offering my group some kind of compromise so that I don't fall into the role of forever DM? Okay, so Matthew, first of all, I will let you know that you don't have to worry about falling into the role of the forever DM because that's what you are already. I mean, you've been playing with these people for 8 years and what you just said, they don't usually, nobody's chomping at the bit to DM. And then even when they do, it's very short-lived. And that happens. I don't know if you're ever with that group of people after having played together that long going to get to a place where River says, once you're here forever. I don't know if I foresee a future wherein that changes based on something that you do. Other than like making your plea. You could always give like a Shark Tank presentation as to why you think other people need a DM for the next 6 months. But I mean, at the end of the day, if they're not gonna DM, they're not gonna want to. Yes, and we've talked about ad nauseum the stress that it is to DM and the responsibility and it's scary and you want everything to go well and there's no reason you can't play a character and DM. Tricky route to walk, but it's doable. Yeah, that's true. That's actually a really good short answer. Thank you, Hans, for the $2 donation. Thier's World Trilogy also. Reality in the Navy 86. I guess that was to Andy from Hans. Thank you, Hans. Anyway, what was I just saying? Oh, yeah, that's a short answer, is you can run a PC. Right? So that allows you to play a little bit more, but it's not the same. I know that's not the answer you're looking for. I wish that I could tell you that like if you just sit them all down and plead with them and like explain to them why it's important, then they'll trade off. Maybe if you want to play with the same group, the easiest solution is to just find another group that you can play with to scratch that itch elsewhere and just, accept the fact that you're the forever DM in your own group. If you don't like that and you want to maintain this or change this with your existing group, then I think that maybe you present it in such a way where there are multiple DMs for the same campaign. And so as a result, you kind of split the responsibility. So maybe it's just like you pick 2 or 3 people, or maybe you include yourself in that. And so you say like, okay, look, here, we'll do it this way. We'll rotate in such a way where we're like, we're going to do this campaign for however long, right? 6 months, a year. And, one person is going to DM for 2 months, and then we're going to switch over to another person, and then I'll take over for 2 months, and then we'll switch over to another person for 2. At least that way that there's like, you can give them some sort of a structure that then they can at least feel like they have some time to plan. Players that try and overrule DMs because they feel they know the rules better doesn't help the game. Guess I cheat by being a story-driven DM. My last group only fell apart because we had someone trying to control every character. Yikes. That's crazy. Yeah, DMing is a battle already. And keeping a group together is a battle. And it's tough once you become the forever DM and you want to play. I mean, you really just have to like, you have to put yourself in a position where you're able to get quality over quantity in terms of your playing. Whether that's with like a PC that you're running as you DM the campaign, or that's as a PC in one of these other players who DMs like these short 1 or 2 shot campaigns. I really think that you're going to probably have more luck just going to an FLGS or going online and finding a group that is looking for players, so that you can satisfy your desire and need to play. Although I understand the want to play with your friends, so it's a tough situation. Some people want to DM but lack confidence. Maybe see if someone has interest and maybe help. Yeah, that's true. You could also, you might consider like bringing in like a third party. If you know somebody, if you have another friend that's like not in the group, and like maybe bringing them in, and but I think switching out the DMs, if you present it like a project for everyone, where you're just like, look, I don't want to constantly do this. I don't mind doing it sometimes, but I want to be able to run a PC. So maybe we can do a thing where we can plan out a large campaign that is run by different DMs, and then as a result, we get to rotate in players, and make it a point to explain to them that that's over, larger chunks of time than these 1 or 2 shots. As I mentioned before, it's like this person takes over for 2 months or 3 months or whatever. And like if you let them know that you're willing to meet them halfway in terms of saying, and obviously, you've been the forever DM, but I just mean in this scenario moving forward, if they know that you're willing to meet them halfway by saying like, look, I'll DM some of it, then they might be more likely to attach themselves to that idea and be like, okay, well then I'll DM the first 3 months or the first 6 weeks or whatever, and then we can switch over. When I get players that they think they know everything, I tend to sue them. Is it sue them a lot of the game? I want to DM, but I know I lack the skill. I don't think on my feet. 0 skill improvising. I don't think you need to be that good at improvising, honestly. Comedy is like... Oh, you know who I didn't mention earlier? This is like we're going off on a side trail here. I forgot to mention Crocodile from One Piece when we were talking about villains. Crocodile from One Piece is like top tier for me. And in that, I've said this on TikTok. I've not said it here. One Piece is D&D, for anyone who didn't know. So if there are any anime fans out there who haven't watched One Piece, I can see why you wouldn't if you're an anime fan, just because it can be intimidating since it's like 1,000 episodes or whatever. But it is really, really good. And it is 100% a D&D campaign. That's all it is. Luffy and the Straw Hats are just a D&D party. It's pretty nuts. And I think that eventually I'm going to make a video where I break down all of like what their classes are and stuff. And I know Rustage has like I know now that Rustage has the One Piece D&D stuff. Giving the Ring of Murphy's Law to players that think they know everything. Haven't been a DM in years, and next year my fellow players in groups I am are pushing me to pick up the DM mantle again. Yeah. Well, you should. Do you know why they do not want to? The answer to this problem is different depending on what their issue is. Lack of confidence, ideas, rule knowledge. Yeah, that's a good point too from Wolfram. Yeah. Do they have individual reasons? Is there just like a general... Have you spoken to them individually about it? Because I got to tell you, I consider myself to be like relatively extroverted, at least in the sense of like how I can interact socially. But I still get super nervous. And so like when I'm talking to people who like are actually like actively nervous all the time, like more than me, I can imagine that's a lot of pressure. And if you're in a group of people and somebody's just like, hey, does anybody want to DM? It's no shot that the shy person is going to be like, yeah, I'll do it. In that setting, there's no way. Whereas I think if you maybe spoke to them individually and then maybe get a gauge for what the problem is, Because yeah, to Wolfram's point, it could be a different reason. Like somebody might be shy and like not have the confidence to do it. There might be another person who isn't worried about that. They're more concerned about like the mechanics of things, in which case you can help them along because you're the forever DM, so you know what you're doing. So I think we answered that one. Yeah, I think we got that one nailed down. What are your thoughts on a campaign in a world where warlocks and patrons are having a massive battle for power? That sounds dope. The main character is a cannibal warlock with no patron, but she hunts, kills, and eats. Oh, I'm down for this. Other warlock champions... Oh, excuse me. She hunts, kills, and eats other warlock champions to absorb their power and absorb their patrons, so she can gain the powers of a god to kill a god that ruined her life. Yeah. That sounds dope as hell. Keep doing whatever that is. Keep that going. All right, let's move on. So this next question is from Brack. Brack actually was the friend that sent in the information about the Sea of Ash and Shadow book series that'll be coming out. Brack asks, what is your favorite RPG system that is not D&D? Fate, Savage Worlds, Shadowrun, Vampire the Masquerade, or World of Darkness, Cyberpunk 2020, or something else? I was just talking about this the other day, and I think I'm going to have to say, well, I guess technically I could say Pathfinder or Pathfinder 2, because those aren't technically like the same properties, but they are close enough that I consider them pretty much the same. I really like D20 Modern a lot. And, some of that might be tied up in nostalgia. I'm sure a lot of it is, because, the D20 Modern campaigns I have under my belt were all played during a time where it was like the heyday of the most D&D I ever played. Back in like the early 20s, and we were all single, and there wasn't anything going on, and we were just playing a lot of D&D. D20 Modern is sweet. About to run a Deadlands campaign. Yeah, I've never played Deadlands. And I talked about how we did play that Sidewinder Recoiled RPG, which is like a Western early 2000s RPG, but I've never played Deadlands. I've also never played Vampire, admittedly. But in terms of... Yeah, Shadowrun's dope. I've not played GURPS either. I'd say my favorite would be D20 Modern, and I also really like, even though we only played it once, and I've mentioned it before, I really liked Wicked Pax. And you know what? Maybe I'll have that guy on. I should reach out to him. Maybe I'll have him on for Art Corner next week. That could be pretty cool, just to talk about him and the stuff that they do over there in terms of games, because they make some cool stuff. Big fan of Tales from the Crypt. Fun RPG. That's an RPG? Really? Huh. West End Games. Get the fuck out of here. That must be way bizarre. When did this come out? 96. Yikes. I bet that's super interesting. Shadowrun's great. Deadlands is amazing. Grim Servant of Death OP. I got into GURPS before D&D, so it's always held my favor, but hardly anyone else I've gamed with seems to like it. Yeah, I've not ever played it, but... Monopoly. I wear a monocle. I pretend I can afford property. Mage the Ascension is a favorite of Rivers. Chrono Cross... leveling mechanics where you only level up from boss fights, not just any battle will do. Yeah, I can get behind that. Look to YouTube and see if anyone has done videos on DM tips. Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of them out there. But yeah, that's where I'm at with other systems. To be frank, I've not had a terrible amount of experience with systems outside of D&D. I mean, you could probably, maybe like less than 10 other systems that I've tried besides D&D, at least in terms of tabletop stuff. Hero games, both champions for Supers and Fantasy Hero. Tactics Ogre is your current right now. Interesting. Yeah, you know, Justin and Melissa are super into board games. But I just I don't know. I like D&D. And I don't feel I don't feel a real need, I guess, to want to reach out and play those other ones. And honestly, these days I don't have time anyway. So like if I'm doing it for something for business, I'll play it. But other than that, probably not. I'm gonna play Hero Quest, but it's so expensive. Oh man, dude, we used to play. Wait, is that the same thing I'm thinking of? Oh no, never mind. I was thinking of Hero Escape. Dude, Hero Escape is fun as hell. Do they? I guess they don't even produce that stuff anymore. But it was like a hex system with minis. Dude, that game was really fun. We had a lot of fun playing that. To play deck building card games. Oh yeah. What's that Marvel one? Is it just Marvel Heroes? Marvel deck building games. Marvel Legendary. That's what it's called. Yeah, that game is fun as shit. Start streaming New World, converted HQ into AD&D first edition. Huh. Yes, Legendary. Thank you. That's what it's called. Marvel Snap is the new one. It's like isn't Marvel Snap an app? No. I'm talking about Legendary. It's a deck building game. Oh, I guess Snap is a deck building game, but it's on the phone. Legendary is physical cards. I guess that was my confusion. Yes, my music is back on Spotify. I am Yazik on Spotify. I'll put it in the chat there. It's YAHZICK. Attack of Opportunity is back on Spotify. Sorry for everyone. I don't know what in the heck happened with all that. But thankfully, it seems that we've gotten it fixed and squared away because now we're back up. And I'm going to have to... I don't freestyle. I don't freestyle as a bard. I don't freestyle as a regular person either. All of my stuff is written. I'll admit that. I just never have done it. I've never been in a position where I don't consider myself a rapper either. And I've said that. I'm a writer who raps. Rapping is just like a thing that I do because I do consider like being a rapper is like I'm more of a jack of all trades in the sense of like I like to do a bunch of stuff. As opposed to like I feel like a rapper really focuses on rapping. And it's not to say that they can't do other stuff as well, but rap is just not like my primary driver, I guess. It's an equal driver to everything else I do. So thank you, Brack. The next question we have is from Carl. And Carl asks, oh, this is fun. This is not necessarily D&D related. This is more a channel question, but how big is your crew doing your skits? What are their roles? How long do you guys usually spend on editing an episode? Too long. How long does it take for you to write material? How many are full-time employees? Do Sarah, Lance, and Waylon have part-time jobs? So that was a bunch of questions, but let me go through those. So let's see. So the crew is really just Justin, honestly. Not to take away from the D&Ds because we do love the D&Ds and we're going to obviously keep doing the D&Ds. I enjoy making them. We do have a new show. I won't say a whole lot about. It's in the works. There is something new we're going to be doing next year. But in addition to the D&Ds. But I will say, all of that said, like it, at least from a production standpoint, it's gotten relatively formulaic. You know, and we do try to switch it up and make things interesting, but especially now that we've gone back to batch shooting, it's more of just kind of like a let's get in and get out and get the thing done kind of situation. And so that said, like, you know, Justin pretty much sets everything up and shoots, and it's if he is needed to be filmed or if he's needed to be doing something else on set that day, Melissa films here and there. As far as editing goes, well, let's see. Was that Let's see where we are. How long do we usually spend on editing? Yeah, that was the next question. Well, what are their roles? Yeah, Melissa really just helps film. And then Rigsby and Jay, Waylon, and Lance are just there to act. I do the editing with Justin. We share that load of work with. He typically will do the selects, meaning like the cut, the takes rather that we're going to be using for the episode, and he'll send the selects over. I usually will cut the gag reel myself. He'll send the selects over, and then I'll run audio and stuff for that and put it all together. And I mean, if I'm really focused, I can get a good edit done in 2 hours. But I tend to lollygag, and I also, and not necessarily lollygag, but I split up my time across the week, so I don't have to do everything all at once, I guess. So Sarah looked deadly. Yeah, Sarah's. It's funny because the characters are just like small exaggerations of who they are in real life. But yeah, so usually a couple hours at least for editing. As with material that I've written scripts in 15 minutes. I've had scripts that have taken me 6 days to write. It kind of depends on what the source material is. I think I've talked about that before too. Like if it's a Florida edition, easy peasy, because it just like look up the news and then just like apply the stories appropriately. But if it's something that's more nuanced, that has like more jokes in the minutia, the details of the script of the sketch, like then that takes a little more time. Plus, I'm picky, and I can get annoyed and delete stuff and start over, and sometimes it can take hours and days. And the writing thing is there's not a lot of consistency in it, which is part of the stress. You like the fantasy adventure skits you guys did a while back? Yeah. Oh, yeah, those costumes were mad uncomfortable in this Florida heat and humidity. Dude, and that was like in the summer that we were shooting that. Oh, dude, that was bad. Like out in the woods. Yeah, the humidity just sucks here. When it gets to be like 100 out, no bueno. No mas. So I think that answers that question. As far as full-time employees, it's really just me and Justin that are on the channel for full-time. Sarah, Lance, and Waylon have full-time jobs. Waylon, actually, Rigsby, just started on TikTok. He's going to be doing like blacksmithing, which I'm excited about. That's going to be dope. He just bought a bunch of like smithing materials, so he's going to be doing that stuff as soon as that posts. You love the Florida episodes. Yeah, thank you. The Florida episodes are fun. Oh, there's been some wildin' stories lately, just in the last like week or two. Yeah, man. I need to give it some time before we do another one, but that'll be 15. The next one we do. Which days are the strongest? Saturday and Sunday. The rest are weekdays. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, they have full-time jobs. Justin and I both work full-time on the channel, and then I work part-time at a vape shop, and then Justin also does a bunch of other filming stuff. Concerning Florida editions, that's just right what you know. Yeah, quite literally. It's just as easy as like pulling up headlines. And it's gotten easier as the years have gone on because people will just send it to us. I just get like messages and ats all the time of just like, look at this story. And then I read it and it's like, good God. Well, that's got to go in there. Where's your face palm emoji? You need it, yeah. So hopefully that answers those questions, Carl. And I appreciate that. That's a cool question too about like the channel, because I've gotten some more of those too that I want to get into eventually. But it just kind of breaks it up a little bit so that it's not all just about D&D. Although this next one is just about D&D, and I did want to get into it because it looks like we're like, we're here on like the fourth lap, the last lap here of the episode, so the last 15 minutes. So I want to get through this. This one is from Chris, and I don't know what is up with the Chris's. Not that I'm complaining, but yeehaw, boy howdy, the amount of like questions that I guess Chris is just a really common name. But this is from Chris, and Chris asks, newish DM. Took over an established group of older gamers. We've all been playing for many years, and I have 7 players. I'm assuming that the underscores were for claps. It can be chaotic, to say the least. At the same time, all adults, most with kids, scheduling is an issue. Yeah. Have you ever split a campaign and tried to run 2 groups concurrently with the idea that you could get them back together eventually? Is it insanely difficult? Yes and yes. Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of. I would say that you probably won't resolve scheduling issues by creating more opportunities for scheduling issues. And I don't mean that to sound rude. I just mean that it's like, it sounds like you have a problem keeping the people together. Now, maybe you're asking this question because it's like, well, the issue is that half the party has Tuesdays off and the other half of the party has Thursdays off. And it's like, yeah, well, if you feel like you can do that, this person in chat says they tried it once and it didn't go well. Yeah, it's probably as crazy as it sounds. I think it's worth a shot if everybody's willing to like give it the old college try, as it were, in terms of keeping track of everything with the lore. But I wouldn't recommend it as a first option. Something to consider too is remote play. Even if it's with people that you normally play with physically, sometimes the physicality of the meeting can be the issue. So, just food for thought. If you hadn't considered it before, that's an option. It's not like obviously the best option. You'd like in a perfect world to play in person with people at least, once every 2 weeks, if not weekly. If you can't do that, remote can help. I've found that, is that a train? I didn't even know the tracks ran back here. Anyway, yeah, it's hard enough to keep one thing going, and I have done a campaign where I've run 2, and I shouldn't say that it was 2 full parties, because really what it was is that it was a party of 5. We'll say 5.5. It was a party of 5.5, and 3 of them were also villains in the same world. And so that was really more DMing on the side and not necessarily with each other, because those were all kind of individuals. So I guess I've not done it before in the way that you're describing it. Sounds like herding cats, honestly. You've got a train going in Oklahoma. Wow, well, maybe it's the same train. It'd be a really long train. You could turn them into an NPC when they're not able to be there. Yeah, you can always do that. I mean, you can always like have people sleeping or have people, you just kind of explain it away however you want to. I think that, it depends on where everybody else is at. Obviously, it's going to impact you the most as the DM because it's going to mean more shit for you to keep track of. But if it's something that you really want to do, then maybe look into some sort of an organizer like Monday.com, or like I'm sure that there's free ones that are, any of those kind of like organizational calendars. That could be something that would be helpful in that journey, in your quest to effectively run 2 parties. Because as I mentioned, it's hard enough to do 1. So yeah, best of luck for doing the 2. I don't think it's crazy. I think that it could be done. I think it would just take an incredible amount of legwork on your end in terms of not only building, but also keeping track of. Because the players aren't going to give a shit. I mean, if you ever got them back together, you couldn't rely on them to, keep all of the story straight. Not saying that they couldn't or that they wouldn't, but don't count on them to do that. That's not going to end well. Crazy people are tricky, super unpredictable. Spoken with experience, because I'm a crazy person. Watch an old Hollywood Western, you'll see exactly where I ran as a kid. This place is America's asylum. Wow. In Oklahoma? I lived in Oklahoma briefly as a child. In Tulsa. It's real pretty out there. It's good climate. The winters aren't that harsh, or too harsh, I should say, and the summers aren't crazy hot like they are here. I hate my job. All I do is crush cans all day. It's so depressing. Thank you, Chris. and then another Chris. We should just change the name of the show to Chris Advice. Chris Advice and also other people, because there's just so many Chris's. It's crazy. All right, so let's get to our last question. Let's see this. Hold on in chat. In college, our GM would encourage us to keep accurate in-character journals of our adventures. We'd even get experience for them, so we'd have a reliable record for new players. That's interesting. That might be something that could address those issues that we were just talking about. I'm a nihilist, I guess. I'm just like, don't trust anybody for anything. But to Olin's point, that might be the move. It's like, okay, well, we're going to do this. We're going to split into two parties. We're going to do this party on Tuesdays. We're going to do this party on Thursdays. And I expect each of you to keep a journal. Even if it doesn't have to be like, I wouldn't expect it to be like, you don't have to write a novel, but keep notes, keep track of what's going on, and maybe threaten them with the idea that you won't explain it when you bring them back together, and maybe actually do that and see what it does to the campaign. What's the best tabletop apart from D&D in your campaign? In my opinion, we did speak about that earlier, Mace Man. I'm not sure if you just got here. D20 Modern for me. Oh, man, I am so happy that I never got into Warhammer. I think I talked about that before, too. When years ago when I was training for the vape shop that I work in, I worked with a guy who was into Warhammer. And I asked him about it because I've always seen it. I've been in the proximity, but I didn't really get what was going on. And he started explaining it to me, and I was like, oh, stop. Because, yes, a money sink. I would definitely be broke if I started playing that. I have to shut off that part of my brain and just nope, that's a no-go zone. Maybe one day when I'm rich and can afford to just buy all the minis. But I can't afford to do that right now, and I would do it if I got into that game. So, and they have so many minis. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, that'd be really difficult for me to not do. So I just don't get into the game. I just pretend it doesn't exist, I guess. Okay. So let's move on to our last question, which, if you could believe it, is from another Chris. But this is actually friend of the podcast, Chris, also known as That Guy in the Desert. I thought that this one was just a fun question. It's not really D&D related, but Chris asks, not D&D related, but any chance of Chaz and Justin playing GTA Vice City? Okay, so first of all, thank you, because that's the best one. Isn't that what the new one is supposed to be? Hasn't some stuff leaked about GTA 6 where that it's Florida? And it's, I imagine, thematically it would be very Vice City. Because that was not even close my favorite one. Even more than 5, as rich and beautiful as the storyline is for 5, sure, there's probably a lot of nostalgia. I try to remember that like, you know, nostalgia can cloud your judgment. I'm looking at you, Star Wars Episode 1. Vice City came out in, okay, well, not in 1986 because that's when it's set. It came out in '02. So, God, I would have been a sophomore in high school. Oh, man. A sophomore? Yeah. I would have been a sophomore in high school. I played that game until I couldn't anymore because the disc just wouldn't play anymore. I love Vice City. So I would love to do that. I will say this. If GTA 6 is indeed Vice City-esque, then I will argue or convince Justin into getting on board for us to do a playthrough of that because that would be super fun. Kindergarten in '02. Well, that's not that bad. It's yeah, makes me feel old though. That's true. Yeah. So are they? Wait a minute. This says remastered. Oh, I think they're talking about something else. They're talking about Warhammer. Yeah, I would definitely love to. I mean, I love the first one. I'd play it again. You have 14 siblings? No shot. You were in the army in 2001. An Elden Ring playthrough, dude, there's no way. There's no way that we could like successfully do that without like breaking something. I couldn't, at least. Now, I don't know what Justin's threshold is for like being able to deal with that kind of stuff, like rage quitting. I know what mine is, so I couldn't be the one to play. Maybe if he played, that would be fun, but I don't know. You missed 007 games. Oh, yeah, you know, what was that one that they made for the PlayStation 2? What was that game? James Bond game. PS2. Nightfire. Dude. I played, I mean, obviously, we played, as kids, we played GoldenEye so much. But, dude, Nightfire? Oh, and then I guess Agent Under Fire was the other one. Actually, I think I'm thinking about Agent Under Fire. Tomorrow Never Dies was on the PlayStation. Have fans sent in pottery projects that you break every time you get angry in a rage game? No, but that would be cool. If anybody wants to send in pottery. Yeah, GoldenEye was super fun. Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap for this episode for this week, folks. Thank you so much for joining this evening. It went by quickly. I did not expect it to go by that fast, but it sure did. Remember to please send questions, comments, concerns, complaints to bardadvice@gmail.com. I'll do my best to get to them. I've really enjoyed answering all of the questions that I've gotten up to this point. I will say in the last couple of days, I've gotten some real good ones that I'm excited about being able to get into. I'm excited about being able to keep this podcast going as part of our just general content on the channel. The D&D episodes will still be going strong on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll keep doing this every Friday, dropping the audio on the next Saturday. And, you know, as we do the podcast and as we plan it, I'll give more information about stuff. And this can be kind of like a little, you know, we can get like this could be like a little secret club where you like get information before it's public knowledge. But yeah, we do have an idea in mind, a concept for a show that I think is really funny, that I could do really well. It's with all the same cast members that we currently have, but it would just be it's just kind of a different concept. We're still kind of figuring out how to do it and how to produce it, but oh, thank you, Captain, for the donation. Awesome as always. Look forward to joining these each week. I'm looking more forward each week to joining them, and I gotta say, gang, I think we made it the whole way without any mess ups. Oh no, I just said that, and then I think that there's a problem. But maybe that was just on the stream. Thank you all very much again for coming. And send all your stuff to bardadvice@gmail.com. I will be back here next week, same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for episode 6. And I hope to see you all there. Have a great evening.